Testifying against El Chapo, episode 7. Last week, we got basically a tour from Peter of the courthouse and the scenario in which one goes to testify against the biggest drug lord the United States had ever captured. But they pretty much dragged out the episode. They've been dragging out the episodes. Hopefully today we get some of the good stuff, some of the testimony, and they step it up a notch, because it's been a couple of filler episodes this season, much more than in season 1. I get it, but I don't get it at the same time. Like, you know, give me less episodes if you're gonna give me weaker ones. You know what I mean? So, episode 7, testifying against El Chapo. Pete takes the witness stand to lay out the case against El Chapo. He explains to the jury the details of the recorded call and his relationship with El Chapo, before being turned over to the drug lord's defense team for questioning. All right, here we go.
I'm not no Mexican, or a foreign monster. I'm your own monster.
It's America's
Born
monster.
and raised in Chicago. And it's easy to blame people from other countries. I'm here, I'm American citizen. In order for this drug trafficking to exist, it takes complicity in all levels. Every aspect of life, immigrants, our own people here, contribute. Even the agents getting in on it, But I think that certain news media and everyone likes to blame the brown people. It's always someone else, In this country, it's just the way it feels good to blame people.
I recorded some hits in my time, but nothing that brought down the drug kingpin. Yet the recording that Pete Flores made in November 15, 2008 was the only recording the government ever had that could pin El Chapo on drug trafficking in the U.S.
That's a #1 single right there, boy.
Almost exactly 10 years later, Pete, known in the prison system only as PF 22701424, walked into a packed courtroom to testify against the man he betrayed, a man he once saw as family.
It took 10 years from the Flores twins surrendering to the U.S. authorities to get El Chapo in front of a jury.
Crazy.
A week before Christmas 2018, Pete sat in the witness stand, nervously waiting for Joaquin Guzman Loera, El Chapo, to walk in.
I see that they're letting Chapo in. And my stomach's just like, I can see him. He's like, he has like a blue suit, dark suit. Kind of a red tie. He comes in. He's shaking his attorney's hands and everyone. He's waving to the sketch artist, wow, he's comfortable. And he's still not looking at me. He's just like, saying his greetings. And he looks very pale to me.
He's saving that death stare. He's holding on to that death stare, making it real powerful so that he can burn through your forehead with his eyeballs.
Like, I'm used to seeing him in his content. He looks pale when he has hair, and it's kind of like, we kind of have the same texture of hair, and I can see that it just doesn't comb right to the side. I can see that he just looks like funny to me, like I'm getting glimpses of him. And he's smiling, saying hi to everybody. And then he comes and he turns around and he stares right at me. I look back at him and I'm looking at him and he's staring at me. He looks funny to me. For that moment in my own vision, he looked like one of those funny digital kind of like thing, like where his face looked blurry to me, and I kind of
like almost pixel.
Yeah, like look at him again, and then he just stands, keeps his chest on. He's just staring at me, and he won. I turned around. I looked away, and my nerves were at the worst. Like, and I'm like, he's doing that on purpose. He's
trying to intimidate you.
Yeah.
What was going through your head?
Yeah, it wasn't really just, it was him, and it was just everything, Like, this is real, man. I'm here. This is not a bad dream. Like, this is so real. And I remember that I look at him, he goes and when he looks at me, he hits his fingers like that. Like, with his 2 fingers, he kind of hits the table, And he's just staring at me. I look away again. He sits down, and no matter what, every time I look, he's still staring at me. He's just staring at me the whole time. He wouldn't stop staring at me. So then I see the courts filling up, and all the prosecutors are there, and it's busy. And they bring in like the legal secretary, I guess the judge's clerk. That's the first time when the judge comes in and we all rise, and I remember standing up and everyone's staring at, like, everyone's just waiting for us to look at each other, to kind of like see what we do, our interaction. He had that same serious face on him. That he has a real blank stare. I'll never forget that.
How did it make you feel, especially when he went like?
No, what
do you think that
it was crossing
meant?
my mind, like, what the hell does that mean? Honestly, I got to a point where I started getting a little frustrated, like, for the way I felt. Like, man, like, I'm past this.
You're not scary?
Like, I can't tell you, like, scared. Like, I'm not, like, I wasn't scared of him alone. I'm saying, like.
No, but everything he represented and everything
that part is a little bit big, but really, I think that it was internal of what I did. What I was a part of, what I turned my back on, and it seems to be in my face again, in the worst possible way. And thinking, like, yeah, man, like, you'd wondering, like, you'd probably do some horrific things if you had the chance.
Did you feel guilty?
Who would do some horrific things if they had a chance? Chapo would do some horrific things if he had a chance? To you? Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking Chapo's in the courtroom tapping his fingers and eyeball him, being intimidated. I mean, shit, last line of defense been beat already, but it ain't like people ain't changed their story on the stand. So I get it. You throw your last-ditch effort at making somebody nervous and freak out, and hopefully he'll go on the stand and start speaking gibberish that had nothing to do with nothing. But yeah, I don't know who, I guess he's talking about, I guess he's looking at Chapo like Chapo saying to himself, this guy would do what he want to me if given the chance, and he definitely will. You'd be tied to one of them trees.
Guilty?
Guilty about the fact that you cooperated against him.
I didn't feel good being there, but he wasn't going to feel sorry for me,
Nobody's going to feel sorry for you.
If he had the chance, he would have killed me, or like he would have done worse things.
Absolutely.
That's the truth. That's not justifying. I'm just saying, like, but it was so ugly, and just to be in that courtroom, be in a situation. And if you would have told me, like, okay, you could do it a year more and avoid it, or 2 years more and avoid it, I would have chosen to do 2 more years and avoided it, Or maybe longer, who knows? If you would have told me at the time, my wife would have probably killed me, and she would have blamed you about it, but it stays with me. Like, I'm still, like, reliving it brings me, like, these ugly feelings. I remember the courtroom, like, starting, and the judge comes in, we all stand. Then we take an oath. Please state your name and spell it, the court. I felt like I was going to, PF 227014424. You got to remember how to spell your name again. And, having the prosecutor begin his questioning and kind of introduction of who I am. And I'm answering his questions, but not taking them all the way in. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like I haven't recovered from this feeling of them just staring at you. Just staring at you nonstop. And people are comfortable with that. When they're admiring you is one thing, but when they're just staring at you, judging you, you're like...
Was it hard to know where to put your own eyes?
Yeah, you look around, I'm trying not to stare at, nothing, and everything at the same time, but it's hard not to. And then looking over at Chapo, he's still staring at you, and then he's whispering to the lawyers beside him. And
he's whispering to the lawyers all of the things you're thinking. Boy, I'd tie him to a tree right now if I had the opportunity. That boy would be boiling if I had the opportunity. That's what he's telling his lawyer.
I could see the translators facing him. And I could see her talking to him. Everything I'm saying, she's translating. The questioning begins, and I never get completely comfortable. And I'm nervous because I'm saying, like, I'm nervous already, and I'm speaking to a person I've talked with before, and I'm saying, the man. And who's the man? I'm like, Chapo, Because we're used to calling him Senor.
Yeah, so you were saying the man.
To people like that, I mean, my brother and I would say, like, Chapo, or Senor, Oiga, like, with respect, A couple of times I'm messing up a little bit because I'm nervous, and a couple of times the prosecutor kind of messes up his question a little bit. It's not routine. Everything we went through was like out the window. So when I talk about things like my crimes and me testifying and cooperating against, so many people, that was hard. I was embarrassed because we were talking about the crimes I get committed. Again, in my world, they praise you for the bad stuff, but in the eyes of these regular people, it's like, and you're telling your story to these people who are judging you, and it's a lot of emotions you deal with, I try to tell my story like as normal as it could be, but it's not normal. And just answer the question and move on. The conversations of, how I started and my dad and all that comes up, and it kind of stays with you, Thinking of those things while he's staring at me, it was like uncomfortable, Thinking of the threats and thinking what he's thinking in his mind, who knows, But it seemed like he was entertained telling the story, and we had a lot of times where everyone would just laugh because you're telling the story, or you get confused with the meaning and stuff was, They tell me the keys. Where were the keys? I'm like, in the back of the van. They say, no, not the key, the car keys. Oh, those keys. They're laughing, Little stuff like that,
Him and Chapo sharing a laugh in the courtroom one last time, with feelings of guilt for flipping on everybody. Now the question is, does Chapo have feelings of guilt for making the twins choose sides and possibly their family? Probably not. Goth asked a question in the chat. She said, I'm really surprised Sinaloa hasn't reached out and touched them. I guess they're letting it go. I feel like at this point, who's fighting for Chapo? You know what I'm saying? Who's coming up for Chapo? Like, these dudes is out there ratting each other as it is. Recently, Luis Chaparro did an interview with El Minilik. El Minilik is a dude that was like a son, supposedly, to Chapo. He was Chapo's partner's kid, came up with the Chapitos, and now them dudes are going at it, and he ratted on them, and he did his time and came out, and this, that, and the other. The way the cartels work is, the Godfather's gone, who's next? Doesn't necessarily have to come from his line of people. It's whoever's strong enough to take it. So really, who's going out and collecting debts and collecting revenge for Chapo right now? I feel like as far as they're concerned, they done wrote the whole Chapo thing out. So maybe they did let it go. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it is something that got let go. And their punishment is shit like this, where you get to sit in the courtroom and you get to testify, point your finger, and feel the way that you feel about it. Who knows? But I just don't see, from what I've learned doing this series about the cartel, it's like, we on to the next one, bro. We're going to keep this shit moving regardless. That's how I feel. I don't know.
It was like at the moment I'm trying to describe the situation as best as I could, and the whole time he's staring at me. One of the weirdest things that I felt while I was up there, besides the nervousness and I wanted to throw up right there, was that the prosecutor pulled out an evidence bag and he holds it up with both hands. Do you see this? And it's marked like evidence. And he's holding it up for the whole courtroom to see. The prosecutor is holding it up. And then he's like, permission to approach the witness. He calls it. He puts the scissors on right in front of me. He grabs the scissors back and he cuts the envelope open. And I could see it's like a plastic bag and some cellophane or something wrapped up, and he's going to the bag and he pulls out a phone.
One phone.
And he's like, here. He hands it to me. And after all the years of not having like a phone in my hand, he gives me a phone. For that little moment, I'm lost. Like, I'm looking at the phone like, wow, I wonder if I could call Vivian on it. But it's the phone that Chapo called me.
The recording phone.
That I had brought with me. And it's like I couldn't get over that. Like, that I'm holding this phone again. You know, after so long. That was like shocking to me.
10 years? Shit.
And to think like that, phone signed evidence for it. 10 years. And he's like, could you turn it on? Yeah. Most likely it's not gonna work. It's been sitting for 10 years. And but they have, pull up on the screen, they have the call list and all that.
Phone turn right on. Make a delivery real quick. Drop off 2 bricks at the courthouse, bro.
All that. And I remember I would always put me, like, store my own number on the phone just in case I needed it. And I had stored Senor's. I put Senor as a contact from the number he called me on. And then the call log, and they just randomly went through some numbers, and they're like, who's, you know, there's another call. There's a call on this date. Could you tell me the date? And I'm like, yeah, it's this date. And they're like, what's the number? 312-588-2300. Yeah, could you please tell the court, like, what that number is? Do you recognize it? I'm like, yeah.
That's for those that ain't in Chicago, that's the Empire Carpet Man right there, that phone number, 588-2300, very famous phone number in my city.
And what is it? I'm like, it's a number for Empire Carpeting.
588-2300 Empire.
Yeah, I had to explain that when I would set up these phones, like new phones, burner phones, I would just, to check the phone, make sure they were working like internationally and that, I would call Empire Carpeting. I don't care what time it was, I just call
Empire.
Call us, day or night.
And as soon as I heard Empire Carpeting, whatever, a little recording on, and all my numbers that I set up would have this 312-588-2300.
So that means that the twins walking around, each of them had about 50 or so phones. With these 100 phones, all the feds needed to do to lock everything down was track what was coming into the Empire. You guys implicated. Even Empire Carpeting wasn't safe. The old man with the mustache got implicated in this whole conspiracy too. All they had to do was get the call information that was coming into 588-2300 for who knows how many years, and they would have had every single phone number for every single burner that these dudes had. Come on, man.
And they all laughed, you know?
So what did that tell you when you did that? It told you that the phone works. So every time you call that number on different phones?
Yeah, the phone was working properly, and I could give it away to someone. And that was the phone that Chapo called me on, and I recorded the conversation with. I think that was like towards the end of the evening. Like, it was getting late, and we were gonna break till the next day. And I was just like exhausted and tired of feeling nervous and sick and everything. I remember when we get up, I don't even turn around, just the open door, I just walk out. Go back to the jury room, and the prosecutor comes in. He's like, you're doing great. You're doing great, don't worry about it. You know, tomorrow we'll continue. We should finish up by tomorrow, sometime in the afternoon. But we're gonna start early. So by the time I get back to the prison that evening, like, everyone knows I testified. Bro, we seen you on TV, you testified, blah, 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 you know? It's all over the news and the local news. And
What was your reaction?
I just didn't want to talk about it. I just wanted to call my family, my kiddos, and check on them, and try to get some sleep. I remember the next day was just even a little more nerve-wracking, thinking that I knew eventually we're going to come to cross-examination, And just expecting the worst from me. Like, if it's hard to do it with the people that you've gotten comfortable with, cannot imagine doing it with people who are there to attack you. And I remember thinking in my head, like, regardless of what anyone says, I mean, you could say whatever you want about me, and I'm not an angel, I made mistakes, and the baby, the Bentley, the billboard, and all those things, and no.
The baby, the Bentley, the billboard, the 3 B's that, after clarification and paying close attention, was all Peter. The 3 B's were all Peter.
I was in trouble while I was in prison and did different things, and that's his voice on that recording.
Bueno, entonces mañana recojo el dinero, ¿está bien?
Sí. There was a massive amount of drugs seized by the government, like, and money, and you can't get away from that. It's hard to tell, a recording that it's lying. I would be like, they don't even need me. They just press replay on the recording. That's it. So we go back the next day, same routine, and same nerves. Nothing got easier. A lot of people, man, just packed. Everyone just in there, And those days I went, Chapo's wife was in the courtroom. It's the only time that his wife was in the courtroom. We kind of finish off, some of my testimony for the government. They play some tapes, and of course we get to the tapes. That was hard, yeah.
I can imagine.
I mean, because they're telling you, what does it mean when you said this to him and said that to him, and you're explaining to him?
Pete had to explain to an anonymous jury exactly what the discussion on the tapes meant and how he had to lie to El Chapo to keep him on the phone. The call was the smoking gun, the evidence that demonstrated El Chapo's connection to the supply of drugs coming into the US. Pete had to lie about the quality of a shipment of heroin he'd received, saying it was a bad batch, so that El Chapo wouldn't be suspicious about why Pete was asking for more so soon.
Si me hace el favor, se los pago 50, pero ahí tengo el cheque listo.
¿Ya tienes el dinero?
Digo, si me los puede dejar, ¿verdad? La diferencia.
I wonder how much other friction that caused. Him saying, I got a bad batch. Chapo saying, all right, I'm going to send you some more. And then figuring out, hey, man, who sent that bad batch? Bring them in here. Tie them to that tree. Put them in the water.
Digo, se los pago luego y...
¿Cuánto es lo que te entregaron?
Me entregaron 20.
¿Cuánto?
20.
So I had to explain to him, I already picked them up, but I wanted to tell you that I wanted to renegotiate the price. Well, it was weird because I already had them on my possession,
Okay. Ok, le agradezco mucho. Es que también, allá el otro señor también me había dado algo que no salió bueno y los tengo que ahí emparejar con...
But he was open to it, and I had to lie to him and explain to him that I had received very poor quality kilos of heroin and that his were super good. In reality, all the heroin we picked up was over 95% pure. And he heard me out, and I remember discussing with him that not only those 20 kilos of heroin I had already picked up, but telling him, look, if you could send me 40 a month, that would work fine, and I need some right now. Do you have some? He's like, look, I don't have some right now, but next week I'll give them to you. And me having to say, well, I was lying to him. To just get him to talk about it right in front of his face was not easy. I felt wrong, you know what I'm saying? I did. I felt shitty about it.
Was he still staring at you?
Yeah, he stared at me the whole time. Like, I could see him like moving his lips around. He never stopped staring at me. He'll speak to his attorneys, and without taking his gaze off of me. He'd win any stare contest, like for real. Like that blink contest, like you won again. I play with my kids sometimes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, that was hard, going through that whole conversation, explaining that. And then not only that, I was wondering what he was thinking, what he was feeling about that.
Assistant U.S. Attorney Adam Fells led Pete's questioning, then turned him over to the defense to be cross-examined. Jay's ex-attorney, Jeffrey Lippman, was not allowed to cross-examine Pete because of the conflict of interest. So instead, another of El Chapo's three-man defense team stepped up, William Purpura.
Okay, here we go. I'm like, okay, this is the rule. Now we're really getting into this. His defense was that I somehow altered the tape myself. I remember feeling like, you should give Chapo the money back.
It is a cheap-ass defense. That's a cheap-ass defense. I'm trying to think of the time as far as technology is concerned. But it sounds real cheap. Like, oh, well, that's a fake tape. Oh, that's what you got. That's your defense. That's it. It doesn't seem ironclad.
His defense was that I somehow altered the tape myself. I remember feeling like, you should give Chapo the money back. You knew this was coming for years, and that's all you could have said. It played me back to Rolling Stone interview, the Rolling Stone magazine interview he did with Sean Penn.
Yeah.
And like walked me through it. If the voices sounded exactly alike, I'm like, no. I just thought it was a weak argument.
The focus of El Chapo's defense was that it wasn't El Chapo's voice on the recording that Pete made, and that there was a conspiracy against him. Everyone else was corrupt, including US drug agents and even 2 Mexican presidents. His defense claimed that El Mayo was the actual boss of the Sinaloa cartel and had overseen operations for the last 2 decades, and that actually El Chapo was a nobody with a second-grade education and for years had just been used as a scapegoat.
The argument that Chapo wasn't.
So here's the question: does that make Chapo a rat? Him saying, his lawyer saying on his behalf, Chapo was just a patsy. The dude is Mayo. Mayo's that dude. He been running things for 20 years. Chapo just the face of the operation. Does that make Chapo a snitch? Sounds the same to me. Is Chapo snitching on Mayo by making himself a patsy and having his lawyer implicate Mayo in this whole situation?
The real boss. That's dry snitching right there. It's Mayo Zambada.
Actually, El Chapo was a nobody.
It don't seem even dry to me. It don't even seem like dry snitching. Dry snitching is, for those that don't know, dry snitching is like, a passive aggressive snitching. You know what I'm saying? Pointing over there type shit. That sounded like snitching to me. It didn't even sound like dry snitching. It sounded like he was ratting them out.
Actual boss of the Sinaloa cartel and had overseen operations for the last 2 decades. And that actually, El Chapo was a nobody with a second-grade education and for years had just been used as a scapegoat.
The argument that Chapo wasn't the real boss, that's dry snitching right there. It's Mayo Zambada. I'm trying to explain to him, like, I believe that they're both the real boss and that they ran the organization the way my brother and I did, that whatever it was, it benefited both of us. And whether you talk to my brother, you talk to me, it was the same thing. And that's why I view both individuals, you know? And explain that, like my brother and I were like part of a business, part of this, this cartel world. There's different tiers of different, positions for people, and not everyone's a soldier and not everyone's a boss. I'm trying to explain that to the jury.
The defense was throwing everything they could at Pete, even questioning him about the deal he got for his cooperation. They specifically brought up the fact that as part of his cooperation, his wife Viv received an immunity deal, which meant that she couldn't be charged for anything relating to her husband's criminal activity.
Of course, they brought up my wife getting immunity. Like, your wife wasn't charged. No, she wasn't. She was given immunity. Because she wasn't charged for a reason. We had that debate now. It's like, I don't think that anybody would come in to cooperate and not protect their own family at first.
And they brought up one of the 3 Bs, the baby, and how Viv became pregnant while Pete was in prison.
When he started trying to bring up the pregnancy things, everyone laughed. Like he's trying to walk me like, so like, how long? I'm like, it wasn't long, I promise. Everyone's laughing. I'm a man in prison with a chance to go and be with his wife. Just so many little things, like, that they would bring up that phone had no relevance to.
Because they was trying to shake you up. Of course they're going to bring it all up. They're there to embarrass you. They're there to shake you up. They're there to, to make sure you're not in the right mind state. Let me throw his kid in his face. Let's just drown him in his own shit.
No case.
Oh, no, snap. I said the word shit. I believe that might be the first time I cussed today. That might be the reason this whole video gets demonetized, because YouTube is targeting me right now.
Just so many little things, like, that they would bring up that phone had no relevance to helping the case, But I guess he has to try something. And there's a lot of tension. Like, you see in something, they feel like I was the only one that testified against him, but there's 14 of us.
14?
One of the guys testified that he had 140 people killed. And he had sold like 1 million kilos of cocaine and had a fortune of like $15 billion. Ultimately, all I had to do was just go in there and tell the truth.
Now, here's the thing. We don't know these other 14 people. Through our research, maybe we find these other 14 people. Right now, what we got is the Flores twins. The Flores twins sold their story. This is what allows everybody to be able to judge them and to have their opinions on them. You know what I'm saying? Because they sold their story. It's open to the people. We don't know these other people. Trust me, I'll be looking, though. I'm on a research binge.
Yeah, I testified for 2 long days. I remember the last thing, walking and the doors closed where I leave, and they're like, everyone's like getting up. And Chapo gets up and me and him are standing across from each other this time. We're both just looking at each other. And he's looking at me.
They should have just uncuffed them both and just let them clash right in the center of the courtroom and just see who's who at the end of it. You know what I mean? Who y'all got y'all money on? Who takes it? Fight between Pete and Chapo, middle of the courtroom. Nobody intervenes. Everybody gets out the way. Who's taking that fight? Who wins, Chapo or Peter Flores? Y'all let me know in the chat.
I'm staring at him back. Just looking at him, and he's looking at me, and we both kind of turn around at the same time. He walked out that door, and I walked out this door. We go back, and I, get to speak with the prosecutor real quick. He said, "You did great, man. I wish you the best of luck." And I said, "You gonna try to help me?" He's like, "I will." And the time's right, well. And he kept his word. He wrote a letter stating that he felt that they should give me the 2 years off.
Adam Fells, the lead prosecutor, wrote that letter to Judge Ruben Castillo, requesting a sentence reduction for the twins because of how great they've been as cooperators. U.S. attorneys Adam Fells, Thomas Shakeshaft, and Michael Ferrara had been with the twins from the beginning, often spending more time with Jay and Pete over the past decade than their own family, and all advocated for the shorter recommendation of the twins' sentence. The sentencing reduction was denied. Pete didn't get any further benefit for testifying in court against El Chapo.
Leaving there and just thinking like I'm glad I got through it, feeling like I did the right thing. And thinking like, look, I thought it was behind me. And it's like...
Yeah, did you feel like it was done then?
It's like you sell something for a price and then you got to keep coming back and paying some more.
Yep. Property tax.
It's not easy, man. This wasn't an easy situation with my brother and I for our family. It's taken a humongous toll on us, and the price we paid has been huge.
How long did Chapo get?
He got life sentence plus 30 years.
The trial against El Chapo lasted 3 months. He was sentenced on July 17, 2019 to life in prison, plus 30 years, and was ordered to pay $12.6 billion in forfeiture. It took 31 different agencies worldwide to take El Chapo down. He's now in ADX Florence, Administrative Maximum Penitentiary, known as Supermax in Colorado. Supermax has been described by its own ex-warden as worse than death. The prison is designed to keep every inmate in near total solitary confinement. You shower and eat in your cell. Meals are slid through small holes, so you have no contact with anyone, and you only get one 15-minute phone call a month.
Torture, boy.
Inmates have been diagnosed with insanity while being incarcerated there. It's considered escape-proof. No one has ever escaped. While he may not get to meet them, El Chapo shares a prison with some of the worst criminals. The Boston Marathon bomber, the Atlanta Olympic...
Right, like the least you could do, if you're going to put us all in one building, let us commingle, like, you know what I'm saying? The Rogues Gallery for Batman and shit. Just let everybody commingle, all the coolest hustlers and in the history just all chilling in the same day room.
Olympics bomber, the World Trade Center bomber, and the co-founder of Al-Qaeda and advisor to Bin Laden. Even Dr. Death resides there. On the 5th of January 2022, El Chapo appealed for release or a retrial, stating he was denied the right to a fair trial and alleged juror misconduct. A year later, he sent an SOS appeal to the Mexican president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, for release back to Mexico on humanitarian grounds due to the alleged psychological torment he's suffering.
Denied.
With El Chapo's trial done, the Flores twins only had 2 years left in prison. But there was one completely unexpected challenge about to hit.
The latest on COVID-19 virus.
Updates on our response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Things are moving very, very quickly when it comes to the coronavirus.
The coronavirus outbreak.
Coronavirus is a critical governmental situation. It's a public health crisis.
The Federal Prison Bureau is reporting which facilities have how many coronavirus cases and the deaths at those facilities.
Nearly 450 inmates currently have confirmed positive lab for COVID. Sadly, there have been 15 COVID-19 related inmate deaths.
I was so thankful for not being sick, for being healthy most of my time in prison. And, you know, for me to get to that point and then being sick, especially during COVID, it just made everything even harder.
Jay almost died in prison. You know, he spent 56 days in the hospital. He had 3 surgeries.
For what? COVID? Damn. Guess we'll find out next week. All right, y'all, we made it. That was episode 7. Much better than, I don't know, episode 3, 4, 5, 6. For me, it played quick. It went quick because there was information involved. It had to do with the story as far as, yeah, I get it. It's just like any movie. I get annoyed with the love story in a movie if it's a waste of time. You know what I'm saying? If it has nothing to do with moving the plot forward, to me, it's useless. It's their story. So if they do a TV show, if they do a movie, we're always going to hear about their family and what they went through and their love story and all of that. Cool. Right now, I'm glad we got to the gusto, we got to the court appearance, we got to the testimony, we got to the information. That's what I wanted to hear. We learned a couple of things. There was 14 other people testifying against Chapo that day. Chapo and his lawyer basically snitched on Mayo and threw Mayo in the line of fire and under the bus. That Chapo would win in a staring contest with anybody. And but a much better episode. I don't know how many they got left, if it's 3, if it's 4. But hopefully, you know, we're back to this. Expect the episode next week. Expect the Ovid episode, or I gotta figure out how to hide these words. Much better episode overall than the last 3 or 4 episodes, and I'm glad to be back.